What happens when a teacher decides that learning should actually be fun? Hello and welcome to the Zach Brown Show, the show that introduces you to old friends one story at a time. I'm your host, Zach Brown. In this episode, I sit down with Fred Aebli, educator and creator of Get Me Coding. We talk about growing up inspired by Star Wars, the winding road from the Marines to the classroom, and why a Lego chicken became one of the most memorable teaching tools his students had ever experienced. All that and more, coming up. Well, Fred, thank you so much for just coming and spending time with me. I look so forward to just talking with you today.
This has been like a long time coming, right? Because we've known each other for a number of years now and we played a little bit of tag, but I'm so happy we're here together and we're going to have a talk. I'm enjoying a very hot spring day in Pennsylvania. So I guess I'm pulling your southern vibe of weather and everything. So it sets the stage perfectly. So I feel like I'm right there with you.
I love it. You're there. I'm here. We're here. It's warm and the conversation's going to flow.
Cool.
Fred, I love when people have diverse stories, diverse backgrounds. Like if you were to look at your rap sheet to be like, man, this guy has done a ton. You've gone from Marine officer to professor, building Get Me Coding. I think we should go back and start with even before the Marines. Like, where did you grow up and what were you like as a kid?
I was annoying as a kid. So, the funny thing is,
self-awareness is key,
right? I've shared my origin story in the past, and I guess I could start it a little bit differently this time, where I'm an only child, so that allowed me to be, the focus in the household. Now, unfortunately, my dad died at a very young age, so it was just my mom and I. But my mom was one of 12. So she had 6 brothers, 6 sisters, kind of like the Brady Bunch on steroids, for those who recognize that reference. But it's one of those things where I was always brought along because it was just me. So I would go along with my cousins here or my other cousins with my other aunt and uncle there. And I would always be going places. So I think one of the things that's real interesting is I got to experience life from a bunch of different viewpoints real early on. And then, of course, the real moment for me was, that summer when I did lose my dad was the same summer Star Wars came out, A New Hope, the first one, the original Star Wars. And I heard Jon Favreau, actually, the creator of The Mandalorian, and him and Dave Filoni, he had said something about that when he referenced the 1977 version. He says, Star Wars, when there was only Star Wars. So that was my moment. I go into that movie theater and I know a lot of people, they experienced the same thing where they had this moment where like, this is amazing. So to a 9-year-old seeing that and hearing that, it was like, boof, it was a door opening thing. Yeah. So I think around that time frame, I was always a tinkerer. I was always building with models. My dad used to build model ships. Battleships, because he was in the Navy. He did time in the Navy in the 1950s. So he liked to build ships that he either saw or he was on or so on. But so I was always building stuff, not model railroads. I was still kind of young, but my dad would set up the train around the Christmas tree. So we would set up the platform and always building, always doing that stuff. And then one of the things too, with the connection with Star Wars, I remember getting a book. We used to get mail in the mail. These, I guess they would be called lead magnets today, right? And they would be like a sample encyclopedia or a sample book of a series. And the book that I got was this kid's version of an encyclopedia. And when I opened it up, of course, I'm looking for famous dates that I recognize. Well, the famous date that I was really looking for was my birth date. So I'm looking for my birth date, and my birthday is July 20th. And that's the day that they landed on the moon. And so all of a sudden I'm like, hey, I share this in common. I mean, this must mean something. So to a kid, it means everything, right? So it was one of those things where I started to, because I made that little connection, I wanted to know more about it. Like, what is space? And then, of course, what are rockets and all that stuff? And then when Star Wars came out, really, that was that moment. So we went to the movie theater. I went with my cousins. And we're sitting in there and it was boom, we saw it in July. Seeing a movie back then in a movie theater was a lot different than what you do today, I think, because it's, you don't see trailers like you do today. You don't see anything online because there was no internet. But when
Yeah.
we went in there, I had no idea what I was getting ready to see, other than what one of my uncles, one of the 12, he was in Arizona, and he's like, you got to take Freddie to go see Star Wars. And we went there, and that's all I knew about it. I remember seeing a book stand at a grocery store, and they had the Star Wars book there. I believe it was the original Star Wars book. And I'm just looking at the picture, like, what is this about? Like, this is crazy. So then we ended up getting there. We went to the movie theaters. But I think ultimately that was what sparked everything in my whole entire journey after that. The interest in space, the curiosity of technology, seeing robots talk, seeing space battles. It was just fascinating to me. So as a kid, I was outside a lot. I played Little League baseball. I wasn't good. I just played. I tolerated it. The coach tolerated me, I guess. I got hit with the ball a lot, by the way, which could explain a lot. But the thing was, I built forts. I climbed trees, rode bikes. I grew up in the 80s. And so it was a different world. There was no digital devices, but there were. Like, we had electronic kits, and we would fiddle around with those for an hour or two. And then we would go back. Well, we would be told to get back outside, get outside, and then we would go outside and we would do all those things. So I had a neat balance. And I then started something I don't share. I don't share this a lot. You might be one of the first, Zach. I studied martial arts.
Okay.
And I studied martial arts because my mom also, seeing the impact of losing my dad at such a young age, she wanted me to make sure I was doing something physical, I think. And I wasn't great at baseball. I wasn't good at basketball because I'm kind of short. Soccer wasn't a thing yet. Lacrosse, nowhere near on the horizon. None of that stuff that exists today is out there. Was there out there then. So I studied martial arts, and I studied it for over 10 years. But one of the things that I liked about my studying of the martial arts was I got to study the art side and the sport side. And they are different. So the art side is all about the, self-confidence and the expression and the technique and, learning the moves in maybe an kata or a form as we call it in martial arts circles. And then I competed in tournament karate, like in Karate Kid type stuff.
Yeah.
Not as dramatic. But it was, I got to make friends, and I got to go travel and around here in Pennsylvania, and I got to do that. And that's where I really started to come into my own, and it instilled confidence. So yeah, I kind of did a little bit of everything. And I really do think balance is really key. And I think it's something we could talk a little bit more about later, but I think it's something you're going to be seeing woven in more with what I do with Get Me Coding. But that's really what my life was like. I was an outdoor kid. I was an indoor kid. I was the guy also that would get my friends together, and we made a movie. So if you've ever seen the movie Super 8, Steven Spielberg, obviously I'm not, but we decided to make a movie because I had an 8mm video camera that was my dad's, and we bought the film. We would take it to Kmart to get developed. I bought a really rinky-dink splicing machine, and we made a movie. It was called Battle of the Barbarians, and I am to this day now re-editing it with a lot of the cool tools that are out there.
Oh, I love that.
Trying to put a soundtrack to it. And I've been telling my buddies about it. I'm like, hey, we're going to release this, but you know what we did? This is the way I was. We decided we were going to show it in my mom's garage. So we set up a couple benches. We had the screen set up. We made popcorn. And then we would invite people to come and see this movie. It was only like, I think 9 or 10 minutes, maybe.
Sure.
And so that I was that kid that was always trying to get everybody, I think, to do something. And now that I think about it, I guess that's where my life's taken me. So
Fred, that is my story. I mean, like the kid who really not an athlete, but enjoyed it and still tried to do things, but was the guy of like, guys, we're going to get together. We're going to make a movie. Like I didn't have a splicing machine. Like we did have, I didn't even have digital editing yet. I was doing everything and be like in the camera, and I have to like run it back and look in a little viewfinder and be like, okay, stop it there. Let's try to pick it up here. And hopefully that works. So every so often you get a couple frames of like some random jump take from something before. But man, I so resonate with that. And here's what I wonder, because again, I'm like looking at these wild parallels within my own story and my friends, because I'm like, okay, in this aspect, like you well-rounded, you've got the stuff going on, you've got your interests and your like all the stuff. What is the point when you go, I'm going to join the Marines? Like you're not going into
Mm.
martial arts as a profession. You're not I mean, that is a thing. You're not going into like movie making where you're like, I'm going to go do the Marines.
Yeah, so I was as I was moving up through high school, I really wanted to become an astronaut, and I
Okay.
started to try to figure out like what's the pathway. And you're talking the 1980s, where the really only pathway at that time was through the military as a test pilot or a fighter pilot. So
Yeah.
you had to go. Now I was really limited on my knowledge of what the difference was between our military branches. Like, what's the difference between the Navy and they're on boats, the Air Force, they
Yeah.
fly jets, the Marine Corps. I'm not really sure. They run around in the woods, I guess. I don't know. So, and then of course the Army was tanks and so on. So like you have this
Yeah.
real limited opinion, but I started to talk to the Air Force, and no offense to the Air Force veterans and members out there that are listening to your podcast, but I just didn't dig it. I had a conversation with a missile launch officer, and he said, well, when I was in Nebraska sitting there by myself, I found a new religion. I'm like, I don't need a new religion. I'm pretty good with mine right now. I'm pretty solid as being my faith,
Yeah.
but it was one of those things too, where it's like, yeah, I get it. It's not really what. Well, anyway, one evening, as it turns out, my mom's best friend's son was a fighter pilot in the Marine Corps, and he was just placed in charge of the tri-state recruiting district up here in the northeastern part of the country. And they had a little barbecue at his mom's house, and my mom like said, well, why don't we go over and meet him? We went over there and we started to talk, and the next thing you know, he told me about this program. Now, once again, I looked at the program. All we had were brochures. So all you're doing is seeing the pictures. And then and
Yeah.
I knew the Marine Corps lore, and I was looking at it going, I don't know if I could do this. This looks physically hard. I had heard stories about boot camp. Boot camp at that time was a place, I don't know if you know this, but judges used to give you an option. You either went to jail or you went to the Marine Corps.
Goodness.
And I'm like, well, do I want to be part of that? And
Yeah.
but as I read more and more about it, and I got to understand more and more about what is esprit de corps and the loyalty and everything, I started to realize that I could relate to that. And
Hmm.
I applied. And I got in. Funny story, I was a little too short, and this is the truth. They took me in. We were doing the medical screening,
Mhm.
and there was a pull-up bar inside this doorway, and I was a little bit too short. Otherwise, they had to fill out these physical waiver forms.
Okay.
And the one recruiter said, "Come on over here 1 second." Now, this is the truth. He said, "Hop up on that pull-up bar and just hang there for a few seconds." So I'm like hanging with my arms up in the air, and next thing you know it, he goes, "As soon as you drop down, we're going to measure you." So I dropped down. They measured me. They didn't have to fill out the waiver. Somehow my vertebrae must have just stretched enough that I had just a smidgen more of height, and I was good to go. So that's really what ended up happening. I kind of came to this realization where I said I could do this.
Yeah.
And really it was a culmination. And, when I look back at it now, I studied martial arts under a very great instructor, two great instructors, I think, actually three, but Bob Charette, that's a shout out to Bob. His son, Bobby, turned out to be it's either 1-star or 2-star general in the Marine Corps as a fighter pilot. Bobby was a little bit older than me, but anyway, I felt like I was channeling something all along the way, and I felt like I could do it. So I went and I did it. And as I always say, so I went through platoon leader class. That's PLC. It's 2 6-week summers or 1 10-week summer after graduation from college.
Okay.
And I just loved it. I mean, I found myself able to do everything that they threw at me. Looking back now, 40 years ago, it was easy. When I was in it, I was broken. My knees were hurting. My shoulders were hurting. But I made a lot of good friends. I'm still friends with today, actually. That's cool. So that was the tipping point was just, I wanted to be an astronaut. So got to get to the Marine Corps first. Mm-hmm. So now get in the Marine Corps, and I wear glasses. Now I was still fiddling around with computers and all that stuff that I had access to. And we could kind of talk about that in a second also, but yeah, while there, when you go through officer candidate school, it's designed to induce combat-like stress. Now, nothing simulates true combat stress, but this is designed just to be totally chaotic. You're up every day at 4 a.m. You're going nonstop physically. It's a very physically challenging. The difference between officer candidate school and Marine Corps enlisted boot camp is simply the fact that everybody in officer candidate school are usually college educated people that have a desire to be an officer. They want to be there. They're going to be leading. So it's a different approach. But long story short, I was in there, I had classes, and now I'm finishing officer candidate school. As I now go back to college, I'm studying computer science. Wasn't great at math, but I worked it, challenged it, did everything.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden I'm moving through and I'm in college and I've now completed the 2 sections of officer candidate school for PLC. It's January, or actually it's December of my senior year. And while I'm home, while I'm at school or whatever, I'm actually home now on break. Now let me kind of frame this up now. It's senior year. I've now completed my officer candidate school training, and I should be graduating from my university, which was Penn State.
Yeah.
And then I get commissioned in May, which means you get to put on your officer rank. Mm. And then you now go on to active duty for additional training. Well, it's New Year's Eve. And our girlfriends are like, let's go out. We go out. And while we are out at a dance club, which was packed with people, I slip and I fall and I severed nearly my finger off.
Oh my gosh.
Now, what did I slip and fall on it was a beer bottle cracked in half on the dance floor. Somebody had just left it there. Now, this wasn't like a dive bar. It was a dance club. It was a nightclub and it was packed. It was New Year's Eve. People were there. And I had to go to the hospital. I spent the night in the hospital. They had to stitch it back together. Next thing you know, I had to have a hand surgery to reattach tendons and nerves in my pinky and part of my finger. So in doing that, I had to actually disenroll from my college semester because I now had to stay home.
Yeah.
I didn't realize what I was doing. Once I disenrolled from college, I also pulled myself out of the officer program for the Marine Corps.
Oh, no.
And then that was crazy because I'm like, this is my dream. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
But I had to fix my hand.
Sure.
So now I go through the hand surgeries. I get everything healed. And it's now, now we're into the summer. I still needed to finish my degree. So, but I also wanted to get commissioned. I went through this long process of getting, my final course. Now I'm a senior, I had to do 400 level courses and all that. I had to find teachers. It was a lot of activity there. What ended up happening though was I reapplied for the officer candidate program. Now they said the only way I can get back in at that time was I had to do it all over again.
No.
And this is kind of like saying, well, you went through hell once, but guess what? You got to go through and do it again. And I did a lot of soul searching. I did a lot of praying on it at that point. Yeah. And I said, I'll do it. I'm going to do it. And because my dream was to become an officer, to be a pilot, to be, to get into the astronaut corps, to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it got denied.
Oh.
I got called, and this is a true part of the story that I share with people. I was living in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And the recruiter that was in charge of the part of the decision, he was like the gate, if you would, he was going to either let me through or not. He called me up and he had me drive 2.5 hours to State College to tell me in person in a back room, I'm not going to support you because he goes, we don't need more alcoholics in the Marine Corps. And I said, well, what do you say? You really, I'm not going to argue with him because he's holding my future there. Yeah. But I fell at a bar. It was on a broken glass, but he took it his own interpretation. I was devastated. I was absolutely devastated because at that point I just saw my entire life just fizzle away. So all of a sudden I'm back home. I'm finishing up my degree. I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to, I'm going to have a computer science math degree. It's a good degree to have. Technology. This is pre-internet still. So technology was still, building and booming. And then one day I got this letter and the letter said, Fred, Fred Aebli, your request to be readmitted to the officer candidate program has been reviewed and you have been approved. And I'm like,
Gosh, the
wow,
whiplash.
I did it. I don't know what happened, but I did it. I was like, woohoo. Anyway, flash forward now. I graduate from college. I get commissioned. Now I'm going on active duty, and I'm going to the place where every second lieutenant in the Marine Corps goes to. It's in Quantico, Virginia. I'm in Quantico, Virginia now for my next school. It's like a college for the Marine Corps, really. Every officer goes there to become an infantry officer. Everybody in the Marine Corps is an infantry officer first before they go do whatever they're going to do. Mm-hmm. So we're there, and the one night they had this mixer. It was like a career mixer. You know how you would go to college, you would get to meet people from different fields. Well, we do the same thing at that time, where we were trying to pick what fields we were going to go in, and I had applied to be a backseater. So in a fighter jet, you have the pilot and you have the NFO, the naval flight officer in the back. Because of my eyesight, I couldn't be a pilot at the time. You needed to have 20/20 vision.
Sure.
I was okay with that because I was still going to be in that track in aviation in a jet. Yeah. There were 5 seats available to our class of 200, and they cut it from 5 to 3, and I was number 4. Oh. So I lost my slot. I'm like, okay. All right, if I can't get there right now, what's the next best thing? I'll go into aviation, doing something in the aviation side, maintenance, supply, logistics, all that. Well, we're at the mixer, and I'm just, standing there. We all have our name tapes, our name plaques, actually. They were pinned on like a little piece of plastic with your name on it. And this colonel, who was quite tall, but he had to be like, I'm 5'7". He had to be at least 6'7". So he comes walking over to me. And if anybody knows Hogan's Heroes, the old TV show, you're going to get this. But his name was Clink.
Oh, I love
Colonel
that.
Clink. So
he was actually Colonel Clink.
Colonel Clink. He comes over to me and he leans into me and he goes, Aebli? And I said, yes, sir. He goes, from Scranton, Pennsylvania? I said, yes, sir.
Do I owe you money?
And then he goes, is your mom named Rosalie? And I said, yes, sir, it is. He goes, I want you to do me a favor. He goes, first of all, let me see your hand. And I put out my hand and he looked at it. He goes, this is the hand that you hurt. And I said, yes, sir. He goes, okay, when you go back home, when you go back to your room tonight, you're going to get on the phone. You're going to call your mother and you're going to tell her, thank you very much for the letter that she sent directly to your review board that got you approved to be readmitted to the Marine Corps. And I had no idea she sent that. Amazing. So I get back to my room and I called up my mom and I said, Mom, did you send a letter to the Marine Corps to get me reevaluated for, my commissioning? She goes, oh yeah, I forgot about that thing. I'm like, and it was one of those moments where like, I up to that point, you get cocky sometimes and stupid as a kid. And I was always thinking, oh, this is all about me. I did this, I did that. And really what I had moving behind the scenes was a very smart mom. And she had made some contacts. She found out who she should write to, what the letter should be like. And then so that's how I ended up in the Marine Corps at that point. And then I was on my way with my career. Now, I did apply for the astronaut program. And as I tell everybody, I got denied because simply put, Zach, I just didn't have the educational credentials and I really wasn't a fighter pilot. So they were still looking for that cadre, even though that by that point now you're in the shuttle program. The space shuttle. And so I wasn't terribly, I was upset with it, but I was also realizing this other thing was starting to bloom. It was called, what do you call it? It's the thing where all the computers are connected, the internet. So I was starting to see that become a thing. And I started to think maybe it's time for me to pivot. And that's what took me. So that's what kind of brought the Marine Corps generally to an end. Yeah.
That's interesting. Cause I was going to ask you, like, what was the shift going from, from the Marines to teaching? Is there like, is that the bridge right there where you're just like, oh, I think like I could, what's the in between there?
Yeah, there's another zag. So when I speak to students, I speak at orientation, college orientation. I'm fortunate enough, I've been teaching now for quite a while and we'll get to that, but I do speak to parents. And one of the things I always ask them at the orientation, because I get to speak to them only without the students. I speak as a dad, I speak as a professor. Yeah. And I speak as someone who's, in the classroom and so on. But I asked them to raise a hand. How many of you have a son or daughter that has determined what major they're going to major in? And I'll see these hands go up. I say, don't worry, it's going to change. Because that the one thing that now somewhat granted, there's definitely some students in there with pre-med, they're going to be doctors or whatever, or nursing, they're going to go in nursing, but odds are they're going to zig and then zag. And that's what I tell them. So I share a little bit of my story that I've been telling here, that you're going to zig, zag, zig. So now for me, my zag at that point was I left active duty. I chose to, at that point, I was just about to pin on the rank of major. So I now but not to go on the gory details. At that time, you did active duty time, and then you had to do reserve time. Mm-hmm. Reserve time means you have a commitment once a month, 2 weeks a year that you have to kind of do your military commitment. That's what the reserves are really. And the active duty is more, it's 9 to 5 job, 7 days a week, and it is 7 days a week. But the thing is, I left, and then I decided, I had completed one of my advanced degrees and while I was on active duty, and I thought, I want to get into this internet thing. And I began to look at companies and interviewing with companies that were kind of involved with it. And I ended up getting hired by Bell Atlantic. Bell Atlantic was situated at the Inner Harbor. They had just created a regional engineering office. And this is right around 1998, 99.
Okay.
And that's when the internet was really starting to become more of a public thing.
Yeah.
And for Bell Atlantic, what was really cool about Bell Atlantic, their CEO was a fellow named Ray Smith. And Ray Smith was one of those kind of visionary guys, maybe not like a Steve Jobs or a Bill Gates, but he kind of got what was coming. And he was proposing a merger between the phone company and Hollywood to stream videos. What? So this is before, this wasn't a thing yet, right? There was amazing. No streaming. Yeah. So he was trying to position Bell Atlantic as a medium, like a media mecca.
Yeah.
Which eventually what ends up coming out of, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So Bell Atlantic misstep, they did a miscue, and then the cable company. So you had the phone company and the cable companies back then.
Yeah.
Who touches everybody's house? Well, phone companies touch everybody's house. And then cable companies were starting to, they were already touching everybody's house, but they were continuing it. And the big difference between the cable company and the phone company was the phone company didn't have the technology to push high speed, we'll say, signal for video. Mm-hmm. Cable companies did. And Comcast ended up eating up the Northeast. And that's how they became the media center. But anyway, that was what was going on. So I was working in the company that was watching the jockeying. And it was really cool. It was really cool to see that. While I was there, I was really fortunate enough to be pulled under the wing of a fellow named Rick Spence. Rick was whenever I say it, it always sounds negative, but this is not meant to be negative. He was a Baltimorean. So he was a Baltimorean or Baltimorean, I guess. But Rick was one of the kindest, gentlest men and smart. He had been with the phone company for nearly 40 years, and he knew everybody. And he just took a liking to me. And he says, I kind of had the attitude at that point, teach me, just teach me. And I'll keep my mouth. I'm not here to, be the best. I'm not here to take over. I'm just here to absorb.
Yeah.
While I got to know him, I started to be exposed to more internet related projects. I started to gather a lot of skill on the technologies that were shaping the early internet, from the networking side to the software coding side. And then Rick turned to me the one day and says, "Fred, do you ever think about teaching?" And I'm like, "No, not at all." Are you kidding me? Because I just didn't feel like I knew anything. And I was listening to your last podcast, and you were talking about what is it, imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
And you said something to the effect of everybody has it, and you're right, everybody does have it. And and that was me then. I had imposter syndrome, thinking I didn't know anything. So he said, "Why don't you teach at one of the colleges in Baltimore?" And I'm like, okay. So I began to explore that. Just as I was beginning to explore that, I got a phone call from a good friend of mine who was doing software development using the Oracle technologies up in Pennsylvania. So now I was slowly working my way back to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I ended up talking to him. I went up for an interview. I loved the team. The guys and the women on the team were phenomenal. And the technology was hot. It was brand new stuff. Nobody knew anything about it. And that was the team I was going to end up working with. And I grabbed that brass ring and I moved towards it. Okay, so now I'm up there. Now I'm developing with a newer technology. I'm gathering more experience. And Zach, too, I'm proud and not embarrassed to say, like, I was working easily 75, 80, 85 hours a week. Like, I was just, a week, not every 2 weeks, a week. And I was just like, I was grinding and I was learning and I was absorbing so fast. I still didn't know it all, but I still got a lot of experience with it. So I joined that project team and it was downsizing. Like a lot of software companies do. It's nothing new. You see it in the news now with AI. We saw it back then in the 90s. It ebbs and flows. So all of a sudden, I'm like, well, if I lose if my team downsizes, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Once again, this is now in the shadow of the .com boom.
Yeah.
Anybody with any software development skills, it was hot. It was you were in demand and people were, charging what the market could bear. It was crazy. So, when I say they charge them what the market bear, they were getting salaries that were massive.
Yeah.
Massive salaries. And so I was like, well, I want to stay close to home. And at that point I had met my then future wife. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I want to stay closer to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Maybe I should be nearby. And you and I were just talking before we got on here about things happening and things aligning and being in line and so on. I share this story a lot, and to this day, I still do not clearly know what had me do it. And I drove back to my campus in Scranton, or actually in Dunmore, Pennsylvania, where my computer science professor was, who I originally had. And it was in the evening and his office door was open. And I had thought, well, I was talking to my buddy Rick Spence when I was with Bell Atlantic to start teaching. Maybe I could start teaching here, all the stuff that I've been learning these past few years and so on.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we had a great talk. And then he said, Fred, we have a brand new technology degree that's just starting to meet the needs of this changing world. And I'm like, okay. He goes, how would you like to teach? And I'm like, oh, teach what? And the story goes, he goes, it's MIS 104. So MIS is Management Information Systems. And I don't know what MIS meant. And he goes, MIS 104. I said, what's that? He goes, it's Advanced PowerPoint. I said, there is such a thing? And so all of a sudden I taught like an office suite class, and I taught it at night. I taught it to adult students who were motivated. And these were adult learners who were carpenters and plumbers and electricians and people that were in the outside trades, who were now seeing this internet thing booming, and they wanted to come inside and work with the tech.
I love that.
So, so all of a sudden, I got done teaching that semester and I said, this was great. I loved it. And he goes, well, if you want to apply, you have the credentials. Why don't you apply to teach? And I did, and I got hired, and that's where I've been now this will be coming up this fall, I believe is going to be my 28th year.
Oh, that's amazing. I love this story. I also love when you hear stories about, like, it's not just the zig and zag, but it's one of those things where it somehow loops back to home. I always find that really fascinating, where it's kind of like, if little you would have only known, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's just so cool. So I want to just kind of dote on you for a second. Your teaching style, from what I've seen on the outside from, 1,000 miles away, your approach is really cool, because you don't just teach technology with slides and jargon. You make it interesting. Like, you make it fun for your learners. You're making it visual, creative, memorable. So here's what I like. This is something that I've been just waiting to hear you share. And I think the audience is going to just really get a kick. Please tell our audience about how you developed and the whole motive behind the Lego chicken.
I was wondering what you're going to ask there for a second.
How did you come up with that?
All right. So I'm a firm believer. I was an average student. When I was in class in school, K through 12, kindergarten through 12, and then in college, like I really did have to work. I was a good student, but I had to work at it. And I always thought, why can't it be fun?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that there's hard things out there and all that, but I said, why can't we do some fun activities? Now, in my degree program, um, we have a lot of teamwork. That was one of the big things with this new degree. I'm using air quotes. The new degree was, collaboration skills. We were told by all these companies, students need to be able to collaborate. They got to work in teams, because really techies don't really do that well. Like especially my generation, we grew up, in the basement of the science building. So it's like, you guys just go in the dark. We'll feed you pizza and soda, and we won't bother you. But it was we had to kind of get out of that mold, and if we were going to embrace this, because really technology was more accessible than ever before. Businesses needed to excel, and for you to interact with business types, as a techie, you needed to have that skill set. And then ultimately, the technology was getting so diverse. Like, a technologist today has to know a little bit about networking, a little bit about databases, a little bit about the web, a little bit about design, and so on. And then all of a sudden, bring all that together. Well, sometimes to do that might have to be like 4 or 5 different kinds of people with different backgrounds. So you have to come together as a team. So, I'm looking at my students, and it's driving me crazy. And at that time, I'm trying to think, like, what can we do to get them to come together to work as a team?
Yeah.
While still not having skill sets to build anything substantial. And I'm sure you can remember this, Zach. Like, and you're a musician too. I'm sure you might remember this, or if you ever taught music, everybody wants to just start being, Jimi Hendrix, or maybe that's a bad example. Like, they just want to pick up a guitar and just start playing, but you realize you have to kind of start slow, and it could be boring and mundane. But I didn't. So none of these kids could build an app or a web application or a database application. So what could we do? Now, if you were to come into my house at any point in time while my kids were growing up, you would have seen Legos strewn everywhere. Now, I'm in a new location. I had moved my office last year. I'm still building out. If anybody's watching the video right here, you can see behind me. Normally, I would have Legos everywhere in here, and they're all in a box right now. So I'm getting ready to put them out some way. But we would have Legos everywhere, because what kind of skill set do you really need to build with Legos? You just need to be able to snap something together.
Yeah.
So I bought this Lego kit. And it was one of those, it's a blue box, and I believe it has 350 or 400 pieces in it. And it came with this booklet of different diagrams. And I'm looking at everything, and I'm like, going, what can we do here? What can we do here? And I'm looking through the book, and I'm paging through the book, and I see a chicken. And it just struck me as funny. I'm like, this is weird and funny. We can have them build a Lego chicken. Everybody knows what a chicken is, right? Everybody pretty much can, if they've never played with Legos, they can learn how to do it probably in a half a second. So that's where it was like a marriage made in heaven. It was like two great tastes that taste great as one. We had the Lego, we had the chicken, we had the Legos, we brought it together. And then what I did was I wrapped it around a software development concept. One of the big things in software development is communication. A lot of people don't realize that, but you have to get certain directions. That's your specification. And you take the specification, and then you have to translate that into the steps needed to build whatever you're going to build. And that's what the whole thing got built around. Well, I never thought it was going to be what it became. And it was one of those things where it started to spread like wildfire in my school. Like, hey, did you do the Lego chicken challenge in Mr. Fred's class? And like, and there was a lot of fun parts to it, and it's timed. So there's that sense of urgency. And then we would get to the very end of it, and we would have a reflection. We would talk about what worked, what didn't work. So the Lego chicken idea started there. And then, well, I think we'll probably get to it a little bit more in the Get Me Coding side. But that's really where it started. And it still is. So this past year, I didn't do it. I held off on it. I am going to be doing a different version of it next year now because of the AI stuff. But it's still one of the most popular things that I've ever created.
It's so great. And I feel like I'm such a hands-on learner. Like if somebody sits and just gives me like this, I need you to go do this and this and this, I go, If I don't write it down in a list, or if I get my hands at, like, I have to have, there's that physical thing. Like, what do you feel that it is about that type of learning that makes things stick for developing minds?
Well, I think there's a lot of data and research out there that shows the more senses that you involved in learning, the more, the higher the likelihood that you'll be able to retain whatever it is you need to be taught. So when you do the tactile, the physical, and then, I'm not sure if it's a cognitive, at what part of the cognitive brain it is, but when those two come together, things do stick.
Yeah.
And it becomes almost like muscle memory type of thing. But there's a couple layers with the Lego Chicken Challenge. So everybody understands that a team is assembled and everybody gets a role to play. And each one of those roles are clearly defined, much like a team.
Mhm.
And certain people have access to certain information, and certain people don't have certain access to certain information.
Yeah.
And once I was able to put students, like I could talk about that all day in the class. And this concept isn't necessarily mine. I mean, in terms of the role play, but I would get them to role play and they would be able to, immediately they start to understand, oh, I see. And then of course it's done in a playful way.
Yeah.
And I think play is such a beautiful thing. I think playing, it sparks creativity. It allows you to relate to others. And I think it also just builds an interest.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing that I was always worried about in these activities. Like by when you do these things, you have to become interested. Hands-on is so key right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff, I think, especially when we talk about, our smartphones, these pieces of glass that we all walk around with. There's a lot of people that are really good at smashing their fingers on glass, but they have no idea what's going on underneath it all. And I think one of the things you could do is you have to spark some curiosity.
Yeah.
And curiosity starts with making things accessible and fun. And if you could do that, look, I don't want every kid to be a coding wizard, but I think they should have some curiosity in any field. Like, why does this do this? Why do we need to do that? How do we get better at that? Like that kind of mentality.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that I know I did when I was growing up, it just kind of stifled that. It was very rigid. So when you engage like in the Lego Chicken Challenge, I'm showing them that you're learning. What they were actually learning is the systems development life cycle, which is like, I don't know, watching paint dry. But when you start to experience it in a fun, playful way, it allows you then to kind of take that next step into the more rigorous, drier way. And that's really what I love about all that stuff. It's fun.
I got to go take care of something. Hang tight.
Hey, listener, if you've been enjoying the show and want to be a bigger part of what we're building here, I'd love to invite you to join the Patreon. It's a great way to support the podcast, and in return, you get access to some fun stuff like behind-the-scenes updates, bonus content, and even some one-of-a-kind swag like stickers, buttons, and a members-only t-shirt. It helps keep the lights on around here, the conversations flowing, and making this thing something special. So if you're in, come grab your spot. From the balcony to the VIP lounge, each tier brings you deeper into the world of the show. Just head to patreon.com/The Zach Brown Show. I'll see you on the inside.
Hi, you having a great time?
Looking for the perfect place to unwind after a long day? Welcome to the Brass Mallard, your neighborhood escape for great food, craft brews, and unforgettable vibes. At the Brass Mallard, we're all about the unexpected. No sports on the TV, just great conversation, delicious food, and an atmosphere that feels like home. From barbecue chicken and perfectly grilled steaks to our famous house-made rosemary bread, every bite is packed with flavor. Oh, and did we mention? We serve schnapps. Why? Honestly, we're not sure, but it's here, it's tasty, and we're all about it. Located at the corner of Laverne and Grady, we're right where your good times begin. Gather your friends, pull up a chair, and hear stories you've definitely heard before. The Brass Mallard, where flavor takes flight. Listen, I know we're all enjoying the commercials, but let's get back to the show.
So here's the thing that, like, I get myself in trouble often because I have so many things that I'm doing, and then I'll have this idea and I'll go, ooh, I need to do that too. And somehow I just add on to the plate of buffet of life, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. And I'm just doing my best to get back to the table without having, like a sticky rib fall off or whatever. So, I think it's amazing that you're teaching, you're doing the thing like 80 hours a week. Like you said, it's insane. But at some point you had this idea and you're like, I need to start this side project. I need to do this thing. That we now know as Get Me Coding. Was there a specific moment because I think that's what it is. Like invention or necessity is the mother of invention, whatever. Like
Mhm.
what was the moment that you saw something, felt something, noticed whatever, and you were like, I need to build this?
There was things that were happening, and I felt obliged to step in. I think it's part of the way I was raised. When we started off our conversation, you were asking me like, what was what was I like as a kid?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think as a kid, I was always encouraged to, if I see something, it's kind of like it's kind of like the post 9/11 thing. If you see something, say something, you know.
Yeah.
But like always step in to do something about it. Don't be a bystander.
I love that.
And I want to say that lesson I was taught by my karate instructor.
Hmm.
If you see somebody being like hurt, help them, you know, like that type of thing. Not to be a vigilante or anything like that, but just to kind of step in.
Yeah.
And but I was in the classroom, and I was starting to notice something. Now, when this started, I wasn't nearly as seasoned of a teacher as I was and am today. So I felt like I was the curmudgeon. I was like, you know,
Okay.
the old crutching. You kids, when I was your age, we didn't do that. Like I was literally only, if I looked at some of my older, as we call them, non-traditional students, I was only like 10 years older than them or 8 years older than some of these folks. And, but I was noticing on the younger students that were coming in that they're like that ability to tinker and the curiosity and the interest was starting to dip. So all of this is actually happening within a much, much, much bigger story in our country. Since the 1980s, we've seen the number of students interested in studying computer science decline. Now, it had a little bump up at the right around 2009, 2010, when smartphones were hitting the streets. Post 2008 or 2007 with the iPhone, like app development started to get everybody's attention again.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was really kind of remiss about that. I'm like, what's going on? Because Zach, growing up, man, we were all into something, tinkering, doing, building something. Like whether it was my best friends who fiddled around with small motors on mini bikes and motorcycles, or my next door neighbor who was always wanting to build rockets and airplanes, you know, like we were always, I was like always surrounded by these kids that wanted to do something, you know? And so all of a sudden when I started to see this happening in the classroom, I said, I got to do something about that. And it started actually with a summer camp. And now this is the beginning now of the era known as STEM, right? So science, technology, engineering, and math. It was the response to the shrinking pool of young people interested in pursuing science, technology, engineering, and math.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into the whole political tirade or thing about why that happened or teaching to the test or anything like that. All I know is numbers were down, and I was wanting kids to experience something that I absolutely loved.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, wait, come on. It's okay. Try it. Just try it. You know? So we had a kids camp, and that's where we used to teach them some stuff about technology.
Yeah.
Well, because I was doing it within the university, it was really feeling like my hands were tied. Like I really couldn't explore it the way I wanted to do it. So I then decided I was going to take it off into another vein. Now, at that same time, when I left software development and became a full-time teacher, I took a big pay cut. And I didn't worry about that. I just said, God will provide, and I will continue to move forward with my career. I was now married. I was an instant dad because I adopted my oldest daughter she was my only daughter then, but my oldest daughter. And then all of a sudden now we're growing a family, but I wanted to do something on the side to keep my skills sharp. And I started my own consulting business. So I was doing IT consulting, primarily doing website design, some other networking and database work. So I had this entrepreneurial machine in motion. I got it, as I'm an S Corp. I did this thing. Now, for everybody out there listening, I'm not making tons of money. It was mainly to stay sharp. And then everything I did on the consulting, guess where it went? Into the classroom. everything, every story, every example, everything.
Yeah.
So kind of went back to like the whole Lego chicken challenge. I want to make the class more engaging. I don't want them just to read it from a book, you know? So that was always my philosophy. And then when I started to know this with the coding part, it just made sense. I'm like, get me coding. I'm going to do that within my consulting business umbrella. And then I'm going to stand this thing up. Now, you don't know this. I don't think you know this. If you know this, maybe other people won't know this. I like Disney.
Oh, okay.
But no, the thing is, I started to go back to Disney when I first met my wife, and I was kindly invited to go along on a family vacation to Orlando to go to Disney, and that was my first time back with my fiance then at the time to Disney since I think probably like 1982. So this is now 1997. Okay. So I go to Disney and I got bit by the bug. I just loved the experience. It was so immersive. It was beautiful. It was clean. Food was good. It was fun. It was Disney, you know? So I got hooked a little bit older, rehooked a little bit older in life. Because like I said, the last time I was there, I was 12 and it was 1982, the opening of Epcot actually. So cool. So the thing was, how do I say it? I kind of came around in looking for things, Disney music, Disney podcasts. Podcasting was this thing too. And I bumped into this podcast called WDW Radio. Mm-hmm. And I started listening to this guy who you know well, and I know well, Lou Mangello. And I'm like, boom, right. But this is how my brain works. I reached out to Lou and I asked, would you like for my students who are studying design to analyze your website? And and they did. We did. We provided a report, infographic. He did a live connection with my class. I have a picture of it. It's on certain things on the Get Me Coding website, but he was up there on the big screen, on the projection screen with his glasses on. And each one of the student teams got to go up to the microphone and the camera, and they got to give him a brief, and he got some feedback.
How great.
The year later, momentum started. And I'm like, I'm going to go. I was just starting Get Me Coding, just starting it. And it was more of an idea really at that point. And I went to Momentum, and then boom, I got the juice. You go into that room with everybody and they're all on this journey. What made me a little bit different than some people though, like I wasn't like a Disney themed item per se, but it doesn't need to be, right? It doesn't have to be doesn't have to be like a Disney theme, because even though he's the Disney guy in that way, but like it was neat. So I went down there and I learned so much, and then like everything, I started to build. I stood up courses of my own design. I did training videos because video was becoming big in education. Everything that I was doing in Get Me Coding was actually now feeding what I was doing in my classroom. Like educational videos, internet stuff. Like there was some really cool synergy, and I kept on going with it. So I stood up the courses, and that's how Get Me Coding really evolved over time. And I wanted to have students or young people, actually it's for anybody who wants to explore what is this thing called coding, and try to help with broadening the net of interest that STEM wasn't hitting yet. Because look, STEM was being done really well in certain school districts. It was, I like to say it was done really well out in San Diego school districts. Orlando was doing it pretty well, it seemed like. But there's a lot of areas in this country where STEM is being taught by the gym teacher. And, that's fine. And I get it. Schools can't have everybody to do everything. But I think it's a little bit, it's a little bit of a problem, because that person might be actually putting out the flame of interest in that young person. Like, what if you get a kid in there who's like that kid, the little quiet kid, the glasses, and they're they're the nerd, right? I was a nerd, so like they were the nerd, and all of a sudden they're in there with the gym teacher who's like, yeah, you don't need to be doing that. Just slap that together, and then all of a sudden the kid's like, you know what, maybe this isn't what I thought it was, I'm saying that, but I was also seeing that. And so I decided I could try to step in as best I can, but then like like we all know, it ain't easy. And you got to grind, and it's a full court press. And I was a young dad. Now I'm a young grandfather, but it's like I was trying to do, teaching my full-time gig and be a full-time dad, and then also now do this on the side. If it wasn't for my passion for it, I don't think I would have ever stuck it out. Now, even now, and now with AI and coding and everything, I'm trying to ask some hard questions like, what do we do? Where do we go? Where do we take this? But it was, man, it's been a great journey. I got to meet through momentum, and shout out to Lou, right? He knows, he's such a great guy. And he really had done something magical, bringing together so many great people. Even during that stint, I was part of another podcast with teachers, with Aaron King and Pete Bush, and we started off the Teachers Pep Rally podcast. And because of the momentum, it was the dark days of COVID. And Aaron King is a teacher, Pete Bush is a teacher. And then there are teachers within the Momentum group. And for those who don't know what Momentum is, it's a great entrepreneurial, intimate setting where you learn to start up your business idea. What is your passion project? And then ultimately make it more than a project. And he would bring us together, and he facilitated it. So here we were, we all had our side hustles and our full-time jobs. And now guess what? We're going to start a podcast. And so, and then we got together, but what had happened with the Teachers Pep Rally podcast? So that ran 5 years. We started it right at the outset of COVID, and we started it because we were having conversations with each other because we knew each other. What are you seeing in the classroom? What are you dealing with? Because we were all seeing that thing, like the apathy, the lack of engagement and all that. And it was hard, as your teacher listeners out there know, man, it was some hard days. And I always joke, I said, people will ask me from time to time, what was it like to teach during COVID? And I said, well, we use Zoom a lot. And I said, if you really want to experience it, go into your house, go into your closet, close the door, don't turn any lights on, and then talk to yourself for 2 hours, because that's what it was like teaching online. So, because we weren't at the college level, at least mine, the university level, we were told that we couldn't tell them to put their cameras on because we're mandated reporters. And if we saw anything, it would open up. It was just a weird time. But anyway, so we got together and we said, maybe other people need to hear what other teachers are doing. And for that next 5 years or so, we were interviewing teachers all around the world, all around the country, doing amazing things. And the thing that I got out of it, and we all did selfishly, was, you would do these interviews, and you know this, Zach, you're a podcaster. It's tiring sometimes. And especially when you're interviewing, it could be tiring. And especially when you get a guy like me who can really drag you out, right? Let's do this. The thing is, we would record, I think we would do, our recording was like either 6 o'clock. It was like 6 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night. We would have it. And, you had a long day, you were tired, and now you have to get on an interview. And there was like, the team from the Teachers Pep Rally. And then we would have to talk to these teachers. Well, at the end of the hour-long talk, all of us, we would always say this after we got off, with the guest, we'd be like, that was amazing. I feel so empowered and like excited. So it was cathartic. It was really cathartic. It was 5 years. So once again, kind of making a reference, God put that activity in our lives at the right time. And we would not have had the confidence to come together to pull that off if it wasn't for our side hustles. And our side hustles were all started from momentum, so there's that cycle. And so then that's really where it all stands now is, here it is. It's shown its age, but now it's evolving, and I'm sure we're going to get into that with the podcast, but
Yeah.
that's where we are now.
I think it's amazing how we can be doing so many things, and then there's like the side hustle, the passion project, whatever it is. And I love what you said, where you're like, this moment where you're like, I'm tired, like, do I want to do this or whatever? And there's so many times when I'll sit down, and I'm like putting a show together, and it'll be like the hour before I'm to sit down and record. And I'm like, man, I hope this is good. I want to do well. I hope that the person on the other end of this conversation, this is worth their time, whatever. And Fred, I tell you, every single time without fail, like you said, I'll finish and I'll go, man, like I've got so many things that I'm taking away. And it's one of the reasons that I, only do this show once a month, because I can really selfishly with myself just kind of sit with that conversation and walk through the takeaways. My current flow of promos or whatever, if you will, like I'll do 2 videos, 2 clips from the show, a quote that the person did, and then I do a walk and talk where I'm just kind of like, here's kind of my thoughts on whatever that is. It's like I'm just kind of able to just process what that conversation was, let my audience also have that time to go, oh, like let's have these kind of little supplemental moments from this thing that we watched. Or maybe they didn't, and they see the social media, go, you know what, I do need to go watch that episode. But it's so cool because you leave that and go, wow, that like there were so many gold nuggets in that conversation. There's nothing quite like that anywhere else, I think, in what you do. You just do work and it happens. This, you're like, wow,
Yeah.
I'm gleaning so much from that.
That's the beauty of podcasting. And I don't think so. When I first met Lou and we got involved in Momentum, I could remember him repeatedly saying, you need to get a podcast going. You need to get a podcast going. And there was a lot of reasons behind that. One of them being, it's a way that you could build community, and
It's
you
true.
could build, and that's going to be important for you to, ultimately sustain your business. Like that's the, we're doing this. You said it too, Zach. I know that even when I started off on the journey with Get Me Coding, nobody wanted to talk about the numbers, because if you talked about the numbers, oh, you're doing it for the wrong motivations. But the reality is you got to pay the bills. There's some steep bills with these tools and all this stuff that you do. But I ignored that, the podcast. Like I don't need no podcast. I got a YouTube channel, or I got I have a website. I sell courses, or I'm trying to write a book. Like, so I didn't need it. Well, when I did the podcast with Aaron and Pete, and we did it for 5 years, the last episode, the sign-off episode, it was kind of getting choked up thinking about it a little bit. It felt like I was saying goodbye to some really good friends. And I couldn't believe like all that time. Like, so like we walked away from it, but I realized that then I needed to do this. I needed to build the podcast idea next. And now it'll be a year this summer, and I've had a lot of fun doing it. All the teacher pep rally conversations were reflective moments. And we would end every episode saying, what's your takeaway? And we would go around the horn and we're like, that was beautiful. Like, that was great. It's motivating. It's inspiring, and you're right. It kind of then charges you. Well, now that I'm doing my own podcast, I'm being reintroduced to me. Does that make sense?
That's so good.
I do Mr. Fred's Tech Talk. Mr. Fred's Tech. So Mr. Fred comes from the fact that my last name is Aebli, and it gets butchered by pretty much everybody I ever meet, because it's alphabet soup, So to make it easy for everybody, I just say, call me Mr. Fred.
It's that's so good.
It's so, there's no other magic to it or anything like that. But, I'm trying to explain technology in a way that's accessible to anybody. And I often, so my target demographic is the family that's getting ready to head off to school, and they're listening to it in the car for 10, 15 minutes, and it's a tech talk. So so I'm speaking to that, that maybe that 30-year-old mom or dad who's taking their kid to the drop-off line or something along those lines. And I'm finding that I'm excited about it again, not again, but I'm excited about it in a new way. and I'm covering it in a different way. And I'm using a technology now that I've already kicked the tires with the Teachers Pep Rally. I've listened to the greats, the Lou Mangellos and so many others. Yourself, your show is a great show to listen to. And you kind of listen and you hear this stuff and it makes you think. So I'm hoping I'm going to have the same effect to people. Cause there's a lot of ways you can learn now, TikTok, YouTube, blogs, if you're a reader, there's a lot of those things, but what I'm trying to do is not just make it a hands-on experience, but a thinking experience. So people can see that there's a broader picture to it and then kind of go from there. So yeah, I'm being more reflective and I'm kind of moving it forward, and it's been interesting so far. And it's, if anybody is out there listening, if you're contemplating starting a podcast, the answer is do it. Just do it, because what you don't get back is time. And as you know, Zach, like we always hear that when we go to Momentum, building email lists, because that's a good way to stay in touch with your community. It takes time. You might have the best idea in the world, but it takes a while to percolate it. That's where it is. So that's where I'm doing now, kind of pivoting a little bit.
I love it. And I want to talk all about the podcast, and we'll get right into that after this.
If you're like me, you probably wear clothes every day. You wake up and wonder, what am I going to wear today? Same old boring shirt as yesterday? No thanks. But don't worry, I've got you covered. You can order your very own Zach Brown t-shirt today. Visit the zachbrownshow-shop.fourthwall.com, or you can just check the show notes for a link. In addition to t-shirts, we've got other fun stuff like hats, stickers, mugs, and more. Get your Zach Brown Show gear only on fourthwall.com.
This is the VHS Club. We watch movies we probably shouldn't admit we love. The ones we wore out on VHS, quoted non-stop, or somehow missed the first time around. We laugh way too hard, talk over each other, spiral into side conversations, and somehow make perfect sense. Sometimes we're joined by friends and guests, sometimes it's just us on the couch hanging out, watching a movie together. We read the comments, we react in real time, and we let the night unfold the way it's meant to. There's no hot takes for clicks, no pretending to be experts, just genuine conversations, shared nostalgia, and a whole lot of cozy chaos. So grab your snacks, get comfortable, and press play, because you're officially invited to the VHS Club.
And enough of that. Back to the show.
Again, we've talked about, you've set up this podcast. I love that you've just had this continuation of creative things. I think a creative cannot not create. You put something to bed and it's had its season. Sometimes they're short run, but you have that itch. Like, you're like, I have to keep putting this stuff out and making it. Just is what it is. Like, Bruce Springsteen has put out 1 billion albums, not because he needs money. He's totally fine, but because he's like, I have to just keep doing this thing. So you get to the place where you're like, I've got Get Me Coding, but I want to shift this medium. And I love what you said, that you're gearing it towards people that are on the drive. That was the first thing that I noticed. I mean, I know it's not just the drive, but it's the first thing I noticed when I listened to the show. When I was looking at the runtime, I was like, this is a digestible, valuable moment that somebody can get in one trip. Like, they can take it to work and be thinking about it all day, and on the way home, they don't have to get in the break point and go, I got to finish this later. It's practical. It's attainable. You don't talk down to people. So I just want to celebrate you in that way. It is a fantastic medium that podcasting is, but the way you use it, I think, is wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that, Zach. Because now, and of course, I just broke that rule these past 2 episodes. So the 2 episodes. Well, I've done 2 interviews, and that's the for this year.
Those are different. They're specials.
Yeah, and they are special ones. Yeah, so they're a little longer. And then, of course, in the last episode, which just went live today, here it is. What is it? What day is it? It's the 20th of May. I don't even know what day it is. And that was the story of what transpired during our cyber attack at the university. Not just us, but the Canvas learning management system.
I was listening to it this morning.
Yeah, that went 30 minutes. So that was, oh boy, that was me in the moment trying to convey what ultimately took place without kind of getting into hyperbole. And, as I say several times in the podcast, like I don't want to speculate. I'm just going to tell you what occurred. And if I could verify some of it, I'll go there. But I was always trying to keep it to 15 minutes. And the real impetus behind the idea for the podcast, and this stuff is changing so fast, AI. AI is having us reevaluate our processes. It's evolving our skills in a different way. It's evolving us as professionals into new ways. And as a coder, as a technologist, it's definitely I'm immersed in it right now. I was an AI faculty lead for my university. I just spoke as the keynote at a AI summit. I'm speaking to Family Business Alliance again on AI. So I've been talking AI. Well, when I was looking at Notebook LM, I'm thinking, how could I use AI to alleviate some of the burden of production? Because I think, as a creator, you like to create, you hit it right on the head. I have that disease. You have that disease. It's a good disease to have, right? But it's you're always wanting to make something and put something out into the world. And sometimes you care what people think about it. Other times you're like, no, this is what I just want to put this out there, and whoever will like it, they'll like it, and go merrily on our way. That. So the one thing that was interesting though was, with teaching, like no teacher goes into teaching saying, you know what I want to do this weekend? Grade. I just want to sit and grade all day long. That nobody says that. And if you're out there as a teacher and you're saying that, I don't know. You might want to check that. But you're there really, you want to engage and you want to transfer knowledge. Right. And of course, grading is part of assessment, and it's just part of necessary evil of the process. But with podcasting, having done a podcast then for 5 years, I was never on the production side. That was my good friend, Pete Bush. Hey, Pete. He would do a lot of that. Erin King, she was also on the other side. I would do some tech stuff on the other side. So we all shared a role, but it was 3 people, and 3 people doing what, some of us do as one. And that was one thing I was really mindful of. I was like, I can't put another spoke in this wheel, calling it podcast, and then, having this derail anything else. Right. Yeah. So I thought, well, AI, what can I do? My idea originally was, so Mr. Fred's Tech Talks. It reminds me of a Benny Hill skit. I don't know if you know who Benny Hill was. He was a comedian, British comedian. And there was this one sketch where they have him redo this one line over and over again. It is, what is this thing called, love? And then he reads it as, what is this thing called, love? What is this thing called, love? And so he moves the comma up and down, I guess, the sentence. But Mr. Fred's Tech Talks, if you read it, it's Mr. Fred's Tech Talks, or it's Mr. Fred's Tech Talks. So I started.
That's clever.
Well, it's clever. I guess it was one of those things. So I'm thinking, okay, my tech is going to talk. And at that point, I was experimenting with a lot of the voice AIs, and I saw at that point Notebook LM about a year ago allowed you to upload a PowerPoint or a document, and then it would turn it into a podcast. It would be 2 voices. It would be a man and a woman talking. And you're able to download that audio file as 2 separate tracks.
Wow.
And generate the script. So I thought, I'll sample my voice. I will take out one of the tracks and I'll put in my voice and have it be the other person. So then I was like, it's kind of a cheat. You know what I mean? It was like, it's not really me. But then I thought, well, I do chat with my AI. His name is Milo. Yes, I have one of those problems. I'm in that one. So there's
I'm with you.
So we're in this AI arc, right? I forget what phase we're in. We're going to come out of this phase where we kind of talk to it and think of it as a human. And then we move to this other phase. I'll share that with you another time. But the one thing I'm like, I could have Milo as my co-host.
Yeah.
And I'll have a conversation. So that is actually probably going to be something that appears this summer. And
cool.
it's mainly out of a demonstration of where that technology stands.
Yeah.
And what value does it really bring? But that's really what it was I was like, how could I use AI to not, I know what my content is, but I don't want this this particular effort to be all about the process.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. And I want to ask you a question because you said something, and I've been having this conversation a lot lately with different creators. We've been on the discussion of AI, and I think there is the perception, I should say, of those who either do not use AI or they have very limited experience with it, and they go, well, that's just cheating, or it's dangerous. So the conversation that I've been having with different creators is, it's not any more dangerous than a car is in a person. You know what I mean? A car can't drive itself. Don't get me started on Teslas. A car can't drive itself. A gun can't shoot itself. Like, it's all these things. It is only as dangerous or useful as we, the humans, make them. And then there's the things where they're like, well, when you're using it for creative things, it's cheating. Or if you're making it this video seem that it's this, and you want me to laugh, but it's AI, so it's not funny. Like, what are your thoughts when you look at kind of like the difference between this is a tool / shortcut rather than cheating? Like, what's kind of your perspective as a user, as a teacher, as a tech guy? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a lot evolving, right? So there's a lot of, here we are in 2026 in May, and I feel that there's a lot of, I'm going to say it's smoke and mirrors. Yeah. We're getting a very odd message from the people who lead the companies who are selling us a product. And I think that's what we have to remember. We're being sold a product. So they're going to, and the way they're going about selling it could be a whole other podcast. I don't know of many products that we purchase as humans that would lead off by saying, "Oh, and by the way, this will destroy you." Like, you don't go to Ford into the showroom and they're saying to you, "Oh, by the way, if you hit the telephone pole in this car, you're going to die." Like, nobody's marketing that way, but yet they are. And they have a big problem on their hands because that right now in the United States, the acceptance rate, there was a recent Gartner report that just came out that showed pushback on data centers as that those surveyed was that 73% were not in favor.
Wow.
That's higher than nuclear has ever been pushed back in this country, which was in the 60 percentile. 60 percentile.
That's
range.
Incredible.
That tells you a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's just not being marketed it to us in a way. So you have that going on up there. It's this misunderstanding of really where it's going to go. Then there's another layer where it's being sold that it could do everything. It could slice, it could dice, it could do this.
Make julienne fries.
If any of your listeners have explored any of the AI technologies, whether it's creating an image, whether it's doing some video work, writing code, they've probably all experienced mediocrity. There's probably been these moments where like going, "Oh, that's pretty good." No different than you having an assistant that you would give something to do. Now, is that assistant then tied to a compute that requires power and everything else? In an indirect way, yeah. So like as a human, we all require something on this planet. We all consume resources. Now, how much? It differs. A data center is going to consume resources. Asking it to generate an image of you riding on a banana shaped like a horse is going to be, which would be weird, is going to require some of this stuff. So there's a lot of misinformation about the power of compute, the data centers, the water impact and all that, but there's also some accuracy to it. So you have to look into that. And when going back to the example with the assistant, that's the way I look at it. My students, I in the classroom right now, in the college classroom, we're leaning towards a badging approach. The assignment allows AI, it disallows AI, or there's only a certain level of AI. That's what we're all kind of like moving into that direction now. And everything is to be clear along those lines. However, certain disciplines go about it different ways. English, they're not really big fans of it. In coding, yeah. By the time you're a senior, everything you're doing, we have different things that we have them do, from creating a diary inside their code via comments to speaking about it, explaining it, and so on. And then also reflecting. So we're trying to get them to be thoughtful in the whole thing, but ultimately understanding it's a tool and it has some limitations. So when it comes to creativity, the way I look at it though, Zach, is the idea still comes from
Exactly.
you. You know, it's still born out of your own intuition, your own spider sense tingling, your own observations. And then you're using something to further it, which in my mind, once again, it's no different than, like, if, say, for example, you want to have a garden. Are you going to, and this could be, I know this is going to sound trite to a lot of people, and they're going to be like, how could you make a parallel like that? But say you want a garden and you want a vegetable garden. Are you going to use a shovel? Yes, because you have to dig the hole. Are you going to use your hands to cup the water and then water your garden, or are you going to use a sprinkler can?
This.
Both of those are tools, right? And so you're using them in ways that help you get to your goal. My goal is to grow a garden. And I think that's where AI, that's the perspective we need to keep AI is. It's a tool. Now, I'm not going to go down this darker rabbit hole with it. I recently put this video into my community, and I actually even put it out into my email community, and I asked them a question based on my observations. So let me back up to August of 2025. I was invited in to speak to a middle school assembly of teachers before class started, K through 12. And I was there to talk about where AI was at that point. And I was reminding everybody to, explore it as teachers within the means you have within your school district. If you're a Google school, you're probably going to have access to Gemini, or if you're a Microsoft school, you'll have access to Copilot. Explore it. And then with your students, you should be aware of how much you want to let them in to use it, and also put on some firm barriers or guidelines of how they should use it, when they should use it, and so on. So we were saying, in other words, let's weave it in. Here I am now, only 9 months later. I'm starting to rethink that. I'm starting to feel that, one, we didn't learn enough from the debacle of smartphones and social media with young people. Yeah. We didn't learn anything from the internet either when we turned the internet on. So should we consider, or at least have a conversation about age gating this technology? I mean, I know it sounds, I don't know what the word is. I'm not trying to make it sound like I want a king that's going to control everything or do all that stuff. I just feel that AI is a tool. It could be a really helpful tool. It could be an incredibly powerful tool. It could also be a very dangerous tool.
Yeah.
I don't know if it should be handed off to an 8-year-old.
Right.
And right now, a 12-year-old has access to ChatGPT just like you and I do, and we're adults.
Yeah.
Should they? It just especially like I said, if this whole smartphone thing with social media didn't collapse, look, we're going to be paying for a generation of mental health issues from social media exposure.
Yeah.
AI can possibly do more than that. So why don't we have some conversations that says maybe at certain ages we don't allow them to have access to this? And then so if anybody's listening to this, I would love to hear from them to explain to me why it's a good idea that we do. And if it has something to do with skills, I'm not on board with that either, because we can get them to using AI isn't that hard.
Yeah.
And if anybody's out there using Claude Code or any of the co-work agents or Codex or any of that stuff, some of the advanced AI tools, that there's a lot of configuration issues. I have no doubt in my mind in 6 months, that's not going to be an issue. It's going to be a totally easier environment to continue to build and work and so on. So having a skill given to a child that gives them access to some power, I don't know. I think they could wait. And maybe, and I don't know, should it be any different than getting your license at 16, or certain things when you turn 18 or 21? We do that with other things. Why can't we do that with this technology? So I just throw that out there. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to drag that into this conversation.
No, it's an interesting point that you bring, because as you were saying about limitation, I was like, before you even said it, I was like, I wonder if it should be like a driver's license or drinking alcohol or voting, where it's like there is a thing where we're like, hey, until you turn this age, you've developed these life skills, maybe there should be some sort of cap. I've never had that thought until this very moment. So this was really interesting to me to just even process. And I love what you said about that it is skill based, and there are things that we just inherently need to figure out, I think, to be better people in society and just to the world around us. Again, in your professional, opinion, what skills do you think will always matter no matter how technology changes?
I love that question. I grapple with that nonstop. I'm the program coordinator for a technology degree, so I see our existence is to ultimately feed regional needs, job needs.
Okay.
So every state in the United States has obviously industries, and those industries need to be always filled with vibrant thinking people.
Yeah.
And we need to always be preparing them. It's like it's a pipeline in a way. And some people, I've had a conversation with one, and as a side note, I had a conversation with another educator at a conference one time, and he said he doesn't look at it as a pipeline. He looks at it as a cycle. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And in his view was, so in the pipeline view, it's K through 12, maybe some education, whether it's technical skills, plumber, lawyer, or plumber, electrician, or it's higher education and then professional stuff. So and then ultimately landing at your destination. So it's like a straight shot.
Yeah.
In his view, it goes around. You're always getting retrained, re-educated. And I think about that a lot sometimes with this. What are the skills needed? I'm sure we could have much smarter people than I listening to your podcast, and they would say, well, these are the ones you need and so on. From what I see in the classroom consistently now, and this is over the past 10 years, and I've been in the classroom now, like I said, 27 years, coming up on 28 years, communication skills. Higher education is it's become a hotbed. I don't know if that's the right phrase, but we are constantly in the process of getting kids and young people, I shouldn't say kids, young people to engage with each other, to communicate like we're doing right now, looking at each other.
Yeah.
I know it's via video, but that is key. And that's ultimately trying to undo whatever had been happening the past 12 years of education. So the ability to communicate, to interact, to engage, that's a key skill. Coupled that with thinking logically and critically. Now, we've all been hearing that a lot. A lot of schools handle that and they're addressing it through their curriculum, thinking critically, solving problems. And that's really the skill set. Now, when it comes to coding, and in my area, I would love to see more people learn to code. But what is coding going to look like by the fall? I'll be teaching an introduction to Python programming language this fall. I know I'm going to be weaving in some element of AI, but I also have to make sure that they understand what it is they're looking at when AI generates it, because AI does generate errors, and I think it's going to always kind of continue to generate errors in a way. What AI is doing is it's making everybody a creator.
It's a good viewpoint.
If you have an idea, there's no better time than now than for you to start creating something.
Yeah.
So, and it's only going to get better, but we have to be thinking about what is that thought process and that process like. We have to develop that curiosity in children again and that playful mindset.
Yeah.
So, because as we were just talking during the break, your commercials are incredibly creative.
Thank
you. Where does that come from, right? So we have to be able to foster that type of thinking all throughout the educational cycle of all of our lives. So when we get access to these tools that will help bring it out, we'll be ready for it. I'm probably sure that your listeners drive around your city. You know that there's some rough spots. There's some people who are really hurting. They need a lot of help. They're not going to stand up and automatically be creative. They're not in that mindset. They're not in that moment. They're in a survival mode, right?
Yeah.
So we have to figure out, how do we continue to bring those people into the fold and utilize AI to accentuate their gifts and then build on it. So those are the skills, and coding for now is still needed. It helps you think. Actually, one of the things what's interesting about coding that a lot of people don't think about is it was only 75 years ago we were using paper to tell a computer what to do.
Wow.
We were using punch cards.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Now I just talk to it. But the purpose is the same. A computer was created to help us solve a problem.
Yeah.
That's it. So now when I was an undergrad in 1985, 86 in college, in my computer science class, my computer science professor was up in front of us saying, one day these things are going to be writing the code for us. And that never came. Well, here it is, 2026. It's here. Yeah. It's writing code for us, but it's not solving the problems.
Yeah.
it's writing the code for us. We still have to understand the problem, where to apply it, why do we apply it, should we apply it, like all those bigger questions. And so I think where this ultimately leads to me in answering your question, I think liberal arts education may become the big thing going forward, is understanding the human condition.
Yeah.
And AI. So it's an interesting thing. There's a number of us who are focused on AI, and we say something very similar when we're in our company and when we get a chance to speak, that AI may make us more human. However,
what a statement. I love that.
Well, but the thing is, though, with that, what makes us human? So I'm not a liberal arts. I'm on the science side. So, I'm wearing the bow tie as opposed to the beret.
That's
so,
great.
Yeah. But the thing is, friction. Friction is part of the human condition.
Yeah.
Struggle is part of the human condition. And that's what propels us forward. And when I hear people say AI is going to give us this life of leisure, my spider sense starts to tingle.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I don't know if that's something that's good. That's why my age gating comment was said before. I think students should struggle in school, not in a way that we're torturing them, but
Right.
for a way that their better self starts to come out through challenge in a controlled way, through learning and all that. I think that's important. So like when we say AI could make us more human, yes, as long as we continue to realize that AI is not us and it's something on the side. And I think we'll be okay. I really do. I'm more of the glasses half full type of person when I think about this, because it's easy. It's so easy to go down the Terminator road.
Yeah.
But honestly, we still have the reins. We still can control it. And then going back to the creators who don't want to use it, I would say to them, fine, you don't have to use it.
Yeah.
Don't, and then for those that want it, now, I think it's interesting too, like with music, artists, we're starting to see a whole new category of AI music, right?
Yeah, it's weird.
And it is weird. And is that any less creative than the person who would mix somebody else's song? Is that any more creative than the person who originally wrote the lyrics? Or is it any less creative than the person that created the instrument?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's all part of that, that family of creativity, and it's going to coexist for a while. And of course it's going to frustrate people. And I think part of the frustration lays too in the simple fact that we're not providing a pathway. Anytime you don't provide a pathway for people, they get scared. And I get scared sometimes. I'm hoping in the next few months, we're going to see a little bit more direction from whether it's at the town level, the county level, the state level, the federal level, the world level. I'm hoping that we're going to see some better guidance to say, this is where we might have to displace this group of people. This is where we could see them going.
Yeah.
Right now, that's not happening enough. And that's why I love to get out and speak about AI, because we need to be having those conversations right now, because it's very fast. And if we have the right people in the right room and we're all exploring these things, well, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay, but we got to get on our horse and get moving. So,
and the perspective is, I think you're right on. It's the horse thing is perfect because it's the Wild West right now. There's so much happening. There's so much changing. There's no regulation really, unless you're paying for free or you get free version of the paid version. That's really the only guardrails they have. And I think it's so easy for people. I mean, you hit it on, the nail on the head when you said Terminator, for people to be like, oh, it's Skynet, it's going to take over, blah, 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 blah. Like, what is it that, like, for you, Fred, that like, what gives you hope for this next generation? Like what we're seeing, the things that we're developing, again, seeing this as a tool, not as an enemy, but like, what gives you hope about what we're stepping into?
It's our history. I think it's our history. Now, history is filled with dark times that were followed by good times. And that's part of it. Like, and I also think being a person who has a faith that we're here for a purpose that we think we control, but we're not. So it's in the hands of someone greater than us. But ultimately, one of the things that I'm always stunned by my students is their lack of understanding of history. When you don't understand that people have been through situations that were challenging before, you think that you're in it for you are the only one that has ever experienced it. And I remember, I think, so I used to teach a terrorism course because of my military background. And it was part of our security risk analysis degree, which is also tied into our cybersecurity degree. I would teach this class that would explain who were the terrorist groups, what were they doing. I gamified something in that class, which could be another talk another day, Zach. And I'll tell you that story when we meet sometime. I had a load of fun creating a team project in that class. That was really cool. But the thing is, like, I would teach them when I would get into that class, we would have to start at some point in time. Now, this degree was created right after 9/11. So I remember when the degree first started out, well, everybody knew what 9/11 was. Sure. And, 2001, it's 2026. I have 18-year-olds showing up. Just do the math. They weren't born they have no perspective on what 9/11 is. All right, that's fine. They also don't have any perspective on what Vietnam was. They also have no perspective of the racial strife that was going on in the 1950s. They don't have grandparents that might not have been alive in the 1950s. And then add in World War II. I remember the one time I asked the students, we were talking about, that's how I phrased this. I frame up this class because I had to explain to them where we are today in the world has roots back into pre-World War I with the Ottoman Empire, really. But where you have World War I, World War II. But I got to the World War II phase, and I remember asking the students, I drew up on the whiteboard, I said the Axis and the Allies. And I said, okay, who are the Allies? Of course, everybody says the United States. Some people start to say Canada. Some people will say, they'll even say Great Britain. And then you'll get the one student who will say Japan. And I'm like, hold on. Hold on right there. Japan was not an ally in World War II. That was the part of the act. They were the bad guy at that time. And I said, and if I take you down to the Veterans Center and you tell them that, you may not come out alive. But the thing is, but it's that lack of perspective. And that kind of goes back to the liberal arts education. And I never thought I would be saying that. I mean, like I said, I love tech, but understanding history, understanding the arts, that's going to play a really important role in how we move forward through these challenges, because we have been through some tough times. We went, a world war that almost changed everything, and then Vietnam was wrapped in its own little thing. 9/11, another challenge that it's what's an interesting thing for your listeners to do sometime. If you're of the age that you remember what airports were like before 9/11, have that conversation with a young person, and a young person that's been on, and who's flown, they'll be blown away by that. Like, you could literally pull the cart right up to the thing, go running into the gate and get right on your airplane. There was no security. And I remember telling that to my class, and they're like, what are you talking about? How could you do that? That's crazy. That's what we used to do. So now with AI coming and ultimately with the way I think social media is, it could, everybody wants clicks. And they want likes in their videos. And a lot of these, not a lot of positivity out there in these videos. A lot of them are all saying they know exactly the way this is going. And that makes me nervous. And then they'll say, watch this video. This is something else your viewers could try. If you're feeling okay and you have a good grasp mentally, meaning you could weather something. Watch some of those videos because they are clickbait. And when you watch some of these videos, some of them are very well done, and there's some really informative guests, and there's so on. But there's some that are out there. It's like, wait, I clicked this to get this information out of that, and it's not what I thought it was. So all I saw was the thumbnail, and then I saw the title, and that's what a lot of young people are reading. They're not even watching the videos; like they're just skimming things, and that's how they're starting to shape their understanding off of a snippet, and that could have more negative effects than any direction AI ever takes us. So just something to think about.
Yeah. And I think it's again, what you just said, like when you know that you're getting into these videos, if this is a place where it's just making you feel gloom and doom, you're like, this isn't reality. Like, it's so dark. And it's easy, I think, for us as creators, and I don't want to make it sound like we're anybody that's just building something in life. We're all building something. I don't care if it's a living room or if it's a podcast, we're all creating something. we have those hard days. We have those things that it's like our mind may go to the negative place, and how to get us back on track. Fred, like, this is kind of a selfish question for me. I mean, I know every single person listening is going to benefit from this. No pressure. But what keeps you going on difficult days? Like when you're in that place where you're like, I am in a rut, I'm in a dark space, I've got to lift myself out of this, just funk. What gets like keeps you going? What gets you going on those days?
That's a lovely question. And it's an important question. And I think you're right. We all do face challenges. Mm-hmm. And I'm every day I wake up, I read my prayers. I'm Catholic. So I use an app. I use the Hallow app. No shameless plug there, but I use the Hallow app. And that's what allows me to, one is exercise gratitude. And that puts me in the right frame of mind for the rest of the day. So if I can say thank you for all the things that I've been given, for all the things that have been created, it puts me in the right frame of mind to move forward, because it is a battle.
Yeah.
Make no doubt about it. It's a battle. Like you're constantly facing it. So I start there, quiet time.
Yeah.
And then when I am moving into my day, I make sure I make it a point to look at the things around me. If that makes sense. The sky, the sunset, the sunrise, the moon, the stars, and just look at them and say, wow, that's really, and then it allows your brain to shift gears a little bit. I love my dog. I love walking with my dog.
Yeah.
I absolutely love my kids. My wife is really the driving force in our family right now. And she is a force she's a beautiful force, and she's raised with me in tow, I guess, to raise 3 amazing kids, they're all off onto their careers, doing their things. And now I have grandkids, and now I'm looking at life through my grandson and my new granddaughter. It's just that. So I think it's taking a step back and just being thankful.
Yeah.
That's what allows you to move through it and face these challenges. When I was on active duty, I remember one time I was in a place far away from home, and I had an opportunity to write a letter because email didn't exist. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have texting and all that. And I wrote a letter to my bishop, who was my pastor growing up. So he had elevated to a bishop at that point. And I just said to him, thank you for everything. Now, he was a man of the faith. He was a priest. He chose that life and so on. And I told him how I missed what we call on the Catholic side, the bells and smells. It's the thing that Disney does so well.
Yeah.
If you think about it, right? It's the sound and the smells, right?
Yeah.
Catholicism has that same element, and you practice your faith very fervently, and you have that same music as part of that, and the engagement. So there's that. So I told him, I said, thank you for all that. And he wrote back to me, and he says, Fred, that was a lovely letter. And this is many, this is like 40 years ago. So that exchange there for a moment, it kind of made me realize it's kind of like stuck in time. I can go into my cathedral and I walk in there and I'm home again. It's like I'm home, and I have that feeling there. My campus situation that I'm teaching at is the campus that I went to. I walked down that halls, Zach, nowhere to lie. I am always brushing. What movie was it? Field of Dreams. The one line in Field of Dreams where the memories are going to be so thick, you're going to be brushing them off your face. At the end of the movie, when I think it's or James Earl Jones is kind of reflecting that. I'll do that, especially at this time of the year, right before commencement. I'll just walk down the hallway and I'll hear things, and it just takes me right back. And I remember friends and people coming and going, and teachers and everybody.
So good.
But but it's all that. It's that appreciation. It's that gratitude. Yeah. That's where it all comes from. And I was going to say this too, since we're coming up on Memorial Day next Monday, it's early this year, right? So people will always ask me, as a veteran, they'll say to me as a veteran. So there's Memorial Day and there's Veterans Day. They're two different events.
Yeah. Memorial
Day was actually created to, in memoriam, recognize those that we had lost who had served. That's Memorial Day. Veterans Day, on the other hand, though, is to recognize those who are currently serving, who are in the process of serving. But it's also the anniversary of Armistice Day, which was the end of World War I the war that was going to end all wars.
Yeah.
That's important. That idea in itself is something to be thankful for and express gratitude for, because we have a moment to reflect, because we said something at one point, we will never let this happen again. And we did, and again, and again. So, but going back to the other part of it was, as we move about in our days, I found out something that I did not know about that pastor who I wrote the letter to. Just this past month, they are packaging up a lot of his personal items because of a space that he's no longer going to be in. He passed away a number of years ago, but they had to get into his personal effects. As it turns out, I was a Marine. He was a sailor, and he was part of the force that put the Marines on Iwo Jima.
Wow.
And I never knew that. And also he was part of another force that was part of another large battle, the Marianas Turkey Shoot, it's known as, which was a major naval battle, in World War II. And he never told anybody, And he had medals and he had ribbons. And I thought about that, and I said about gratitude. Gratitude can be something as simple as this Memorial Day. If you have an opportunity to say thank you to a veteran, please do that and kind of put that out there to them, because not that they're looking for it. We're never looking for it. Believe me, we're never looking for it. It's one of those things that it's part of what will bring you back up to face the challenges.
Yeah,
I'm a firm believer in that. Giving grace allows you to re-energize.
That's great. And Fred, just to continue this moment of gratitude, thank you. Thank you so much for just being here and sharing.
Yeah, no, I didn't say all that with that.
No, I know, but it's still like that tees us up just perfect. I just appreciate your time, your story. It's been inspiring. This has been a wonderful conversation. I know people are definitely walking away with so many just like nuggets of wisdom, inspiration. So obviously I want my people to connect with your people. So how can everybody connect with everything that is Fred Aebli?
I would love you to follow me on social. So you can follow Get Me Coding. It's everything. On Instagram, it's Get Me Coding. Facebook, it's Get Me Coding. I'm on X lightly. I'm looking to try to figure out how I want to do that. But YouTube, also Get Me Coding. Subscribe to the channel. If you come out to the getmecoding.com website, you'll be able to find the podcast. And that's where I would really love for you to come out and check out some of my episodes. I'm available to come and speak to anybody wherever they are. So reach out to me through the getmecoding.com website. And I would love to be a guest. And, oh, by the way, if you just have an idea and you want to bounce it off of me, I don't know it all, but I have bruised my knees and elbows and gotten bumped around a little bit to say whether or not you could do something or how to do something. So that's how you could reach me. I'm available any one of those ways. And as you know, Zach, you're such a great guy doing amazing things. And our community that we're connected to is such a great group of people. I think that's the last thing I would say is anybody that's out there, connect with other people. I forget what the saying is. It's an African saying, you can go, I'm going to mess it up. You can go far as one, you can go further as together. And I think if you're going to be growing, I think that's how you say it. If not, I apologize, but it's to those who know it. I think that's what's really cool about this. You were just saying how to connect with me. And I'd love to, and if you need any advice, that's what I'm here for. I'm a teacher. So that's good.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Fred. This has been
Thanks
fantastic.
For the time, and thanks for everybody listening. Thank you.
Once again, I'd like to thank my guest, Fred Aebli, for coming on the show. You can check out everything Fred is doing over on getmecoding.com. And be sure to listen to Mr. Fred's Tech Talks on your favorite podcast streaming platform. I also want to thank you, my friend and listener, for taking some time with me. If you're enjoying the stories you hear on the show and would like to continue the conversation, you can sign up for my email newsletter. Just click the link in the show notes. The Zach Brown Show is hosted and produced by me, Zach Brown. It is engineered and co-produced by Corey Jess and is part of the Zach Brown Network. Our album art is by Luis Lopez. Our catchy outro music is Nurse by Corey Jess. You can listen to the full song on Spotify and iTunes. Follow The Zach Brown Show on Facebook and Instagram. And finally, you can help support the show by signing up to be a Patreon member. Memberships start as low as $5 a month with perks like buttons, stickers, sneak peeks at upcoming projects, and even an exclusive shirt. Sign up right now at patreon.com/The Zach Brown Show. That's all for this episode. I hope you come back for the next one. Until then, take care.